Nigeria is committed to a low-carbon, climate-resilient, high-growth and circular economy that is gender-sensitive and equitable. This is the highlight of an address presented at the 6th session of the United Nations Environment Assembly in Nairobi, Kenya, on behalf of President Tinubu. Charles Alpha reports that the President was represented by the Minister of State for Environment.
The vision by Mr. President is well situated in the presidential priority and focus areas and is being pursued through routine budgetary allocation. In an address to the Assembly, read by the Minister of State for Environment, Isiaq Salako, says Nigeria has put together an ambitious transition plan to achieve universal access to energy by 2030 and net zero emissions by 2060. While prioritizing industrialization, job creation, and economic growth.
Our target to end routine glass flaring by 2030 is well on the way to being met before the target date. Only last week, one of Nigeria's major oil companies, in partnership with the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, flamed out routine gas flaring in its upstream operation, thus saving our planet an estimated 340 kilotons of CO2 emission per annum.
In addressing waste management challenges, Nigeria, he said, has adopted the circular economic model and developed a comprehensive economic roadmap to guide transition to a full circular economy by 2050, while partnering with the World Economic Forum's Global Plastic in developing an enduring and inclusive solution to addressing plastic pollution.
Nigeria remains committed to the mission of UNEP, and we will continue to play our part in implementing multilateral environmental agreements to address the triple planetary crisis of climate change, pollution, and biodiversity loss.
Bola Ahmed Tinubu said Nigeria is playing a pivotal role in mobilizing the ECOWAS sub-region for the effective implementation of the Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework. Charles Alpha, NTA News.
The first meeting of the year for finance ministers from the group of 20 top economies ended Thursday. It ended without a joint statement because members were divided over the ongoing geopolitical conflicts. Kolo Mohammed tells us more.
It is not possible to reach a final statement. Finance Minister Fernando Haddad told a news conference in Sao Paulo at the close of a two-day meeting, which was overshadowed by division among the group over the wars in Ukraine and Gaza. The impasse, as usual, is over the ongoing conflicts, without explicitly mentioning Russia's invasion of Ukraine or the war in Gaza Strip. The group is said to have nurtured the hope that more sensitive geopolitical issues could be debated exclusively by the group's foreign ministers who held a meeting in Rio de Janeiro last week that was also marred by deep divisions and likewise failed to produce a joint statement. Fernando Haddad said on financial issues, the group, which represents 80% of global economy, is unified. Since the meeting in Rio de Janeiro last week did not reach a joint statement, it ended up altering the establishment of consensus at what Brazil had hoped would be a purely economic policy meeting. Kolo Mohammed, NTA News.
The European Commission has proposed to amend the European Union has proposed to amend the European Union budget for 2024 to reflect the changes made following the agreement between the European Parliament and the Council on the revision of the multi-annual financial framework for 2021 to 2027. Haman Debani reports that the amended budget will enable the Union continue to deliver on this year's EU's common priorities.
The amended budget is for the benefit of European citizens and to reinforce support for Ukraine, boost investment in critical technologies and defense, as well as provide additional resources to support partners in the Western Balkans. The EU has faced a series of unprecedented and unexpected challenges since the adoption of the 2021-2027 long-term EU budget in 2020. These challenges range from invasion of Ukraine and its consequences, migration picked up after COVID-19 pandemic, acceleration of inflation and interest rates. The EU budget has been instrumental in powering the EU response. Addressing these multiple challenges has pushed its resources to the point of exhaustion, hindering its capacity to address even the most urgent challenges. The amendment of the annual EU budget 2024 amounts to an increase of more than 5.8 billion euro to cover the reinforcement of Ukraine facility and mobilization of Ukrainian reserve of 4.8 billion euro. The European Defence Fund within the framework of the Strategic Technologies of Europe platform of 376 million euro. The European Solidarity Reserve and Emergency Aid Reserve, former Solidarity and Emergency Aid Reserve, 365 million euro, Reform and Growth Facility for Western Balkans, amounting to 501 million euro, among others.
We should make sure that the budget remains robust, capable of supporting in the future. It should not become a budget for repayment of debt, and we should also make sure that there is enough money in the budget in the future for the traditional priorities, for the new priorities, and reserves for unexpected developments. Unexpected developments always occur. We need a budget which is robust, and no additional fund can replace a robust, a comprehensive and predictable budget of the European Union.
To ensure the EU budget can continue to deliver on the most essential objectives, the Commission proposed in June 2023 to reinforce the EU's long-term budget. On 1st February 2024, EU leaders confirmed all priorities of the Commission's proposal and agree on the first ever revision of the EU's long-term budget, creation of the EU facility and STEP. The package was agreed with the European Parliament and will be in force by 1st of March 2024. Hamad Jabani, NTA News.
And as the war in Ukraine rages, different parties have been working on ways to reach either a stalemate or a victory. The last time the West proposed to send troops to fight for Ukraine against Russia in the major front lines, it was described as a nuclear war risk by President Putin. Kolo Mohammed tells us more.
Russian President Vladimir Putin warned on Thursday of a real risk of nuclear war if the West escalates the conflict in Ukraine, offering a defiant and emboldened stance in his annual speech to Russians. Speaking in Moscow, Putin said soldiers were advancing in Ukraine and warned the West of tragic consequences for any country that dared to send troops to Kyiv. Putin says they have announced the possibility of sending Western military contingents to Ukraine. He noted that the consequences for possible interventionists will be much more tragic when they eventually realize that Russia also has weapons that can hit targets on their territories. Putin's comments appeared to be a response to French President Emmanuel Macron's refusal earlier this week to rule out sending troops to Ukraine, a stance swiftly rejected by other leaders in Europe. Kolo Mohammed, NTA News.
At least 24 people died off Senegal's northern coast and many injured on the road used by an increasing number of migrants seeking to reach Spain from West Africa. The town's fire department says the boat capsized near the town of St. Louis, where bodies were washed ashore. The injured are receiving treatment in a hospital in St. Louis, and an investigation into circumstances surrounding the accident has commenced. According to the Spanish migration advocacy group Walking Borders, the number of migrants leaving from Senegal on rickety wooden boats surged last year, and nearly 1,000 people died while trying to reach Spain by sea in the first 6 months of 2023. An opposition leader in Chad, Yahya Dillo, has been killed in a clash with security forces in Chad. Dillo was accused by the government of involvement in a deadly attack on the country's security agency, which he denied on Wednesday, saying the accusation was intended to make him afraid so he doesn't contest the election. Communications Minister Abdurrahman Kalmala says Dillo refused to surrender and fired on law enforcement officers before his death at his party's headquarters in the capital, N'Djamena. Dillo, a vocal critic of President Mamatan Deby, had opposed him since Deby took office in 2021, succeeding his father, who was killed by rebels after ruling for 30 years. The violence is coming ahead of presidential elections scheduled for May 6th, aimed at restoring constitutional rule. In recognition of the critical role of power supply in driving enterprise and industrial development, and as a part of comprehensive efforts to reform the power sector, President Bola Tinubu has approved the appointment of new members of the management team of the FGM Power Company Limited. They are Kenny Osebi Aniwe, who has been reappointed Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer, Professor Maman Lawal, also reappointed Company Secretary and Legal Advisor, and Ebenezer Olawale Fapohunda, Chief Technical Officer. Others are Babatunde Daramola Oniru, Chief Commercial Officer, and Julius Oyekola Olabi, Chief Financial Officer. And by these appointments, the President anticipates that the FGM Power Company Limited will work assiduously to realize the core objectives of the Presidential Power Initiative (PPI) in close collaboration with Siemens Energy through a holistic overhaul, modernization and expansion of the national grid and other critical measures to ensure the growth of the Nigerian electricity supply industry. The federal government has tasked the newly appointed board of the Nigerian Christian Pilgrims Commission to demonstrate unwavering devotion and commitment in addressing the challenges facing the nation. Vice President Kashim Shettima gave the charge when he received members of the board at the presidential villa, acknowledges President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's positive impact on the nation, attributing the president's success to divine blessings and purity of heart. The vice president said there is need for leaders to invest in building bridges, noting President Tinubu's contributions in providing an alternative platform for the Nigerian political system. Executive Secretary Nigeria Christian Pilgrims Commission Bishop Stephen Adebite expressed gratitude to President Tinubu for the opportunity to serve on the board. He also commended the Vice President's exceptional leadership role, recounting instances of support for the church and efforts to foster peace and harmony.
And we believe by the grace of God, Nigeria will soon come out of the quagmire. Nigeria belongs to God, and we are here during the Lenten season. The Muslim community will soon join us, and by the grace of God, before the end of the true Lent and fasting period, Nigeria will be stronger again. This is the country that we have. There is no other place that can be like Nigeria. Nigeria is one of the most luckiest nations in the world. And I say to all Nigerians, let us join hands together with Mr. President. They have good intention for this nation. Mr. President don't want anyone to suffer. The Vice President don't want anyone to suffer. And by his grace, Nigeria will be a better place for you and I.
Bishop Adebite noticed how the Commission's role goes beyond pilgrimage as it extends to the duty of ensuring a harmonious environment for the nation. Transparent and honest dissemination of the activities of the federal government is a working guard that the Minister of Information and National Orientation, Mohammed Idris, reassured while seeking partnerships from stakeholders. At an engagement with editors in Lagos, quality ideas were shared with the collective resolutions that transformative communication strategy will be harnessed as a tool to change the narrative of information flow in Nigeria. Salihu Gwanara reports.
Newsrooms in the nation's commercial city Lagos have temporarily collapsed to operate under one roof, as daily editors, weekend editors and online editors came face to face with the government's spokesperson. This is to build a partnership with the profession, whose members pride themselves as the watchdog of the society, and update them about the government's activities within the last 9 months.
We are not even doing this for government. We are doing it first for our people and for ourselves. Because good report entails that you do something that promotes development, that promotes cohesion, that promotes unity, that is geared towards the prosperity that all of us desire to have. We inherited an economy that was in bad shape. And then this subsidy, a few people were just benefiting and carrying it away. So, but President Bola Ahmed Tinubu knows that it is not going to be an easy task. One, of course, because to become is like an aeroplane that is taking off, everyone needed to tighten his seatbelt. But more than that, there were a few people who are benefiting from this. And you don't expect that they will just let this go easily like that. will fight it.
The consensus here is the collective resolve by government actors to make information available and accessible to the media to upscale their role of informing and educating the citizens. In Lagos, Saliu Gwanara, NTA News.
You are watching the news on NTA International. We'll take some messages now. Please stay. Glad to have you back. The resuscitation of facilities in the Defense Industries Corporation of Nigeria is in line with President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's directive to ensure local production of military hardware and reduce dependence on other countries and demand for foreign exchange. This formed the focus of the working visit by the Minister of Defense, Mohammed Badar Abubakar, to the industrial complex and factories of the Defense Industries Corporation of Nigeria, Kaduna. Dauda Mohammed reports.
Testing of locally produced level 4 ballistic helmet and body armor with live rounds to demonstrate the quality and durability of one of several products manufactured by the Defense Industries Corporation of Nigeria in collaboration with Imperium Industries Limited.
From your observation, you can see that ours is far better than what we import.
As a regulatory agency in defense productions, we're already creating those standards. I'll make sure that wherever your defense protective equipment is coming from, we subject it to those tests that will make sure it is what the name calls it to be.
This is one of several products inspected by the Minister of Defense, Mohammed Badar Abubakar, produced by DICOM as part of renewed efforts to reduce dependence on foreign military hardware. The minister also inspected the primer cap production factory in Kachia. Other facilities inspected by the minister include the Ordnance Manufacturing Factory, Armored Vehicle Design and Fabrication Center, Deep Boring Workshop, as well as other production lines. The Minister of Defense also addressed management staff of the corporation on the new policy thrust of the present administration and enjoined them to be strategic in their thinking. The minister summed up his visit with these words.
We have to thank President Bola Ahmed Tinubu for really the encouragement and the signing of the DICOM bill. And I'm sure we'll work tirelessly to make sure that in no distant future we produce most of what we need locally.
Established in 1964 with the mandate to meet the material requirements of Nigeria's armed forces and other security needs, DICOM has over the years been unable to meet up with its vision.
The renewed effort to resuscitate Defense Industries Corporation of Nigeria is part of the effort of this present administration to encourage local manufacturing of military hardware to save the country foreign exchange. From the Defense Industries Corporation of Nigeria Industrial Complex in Kakuri, Kaduna, Dauda Mohammed, NTA News.
Navigating through several economic challenges require the formulation of appropriate policies and implementations that will help bring desired results. It is in this regard that the Nigerian Institute of Quantity Surveyors, during a press conference in Abuja, urged the federal government to enforce the Executive Order No. 5 to tackle inflation, especially in the building and construction sector. Francis Adojo brings us the details.
If there is any way federal government can intervene, if it is by giving other people, empowering people to import goods, material, or to license people to produce other materials, which they can use and build house, it is in order. You can see how price is going.
The plight of this man is among the several reasons for the NIQS press conference. Recent inflation experienced in the construction industry, following astronomical hike in the price of cement, with a bag costing between 9,000 and 13,000 naira, and reinforcement steel rolls going for 1.2 to 1.4 as against 650,000 naira per ton before now. Among all the materials is a cause of worry for professionals in the sector, reported to have contributed up to 11.7% to the nominal GDP in the first quarter of 2023.
If you go to the Western world as I speak with you, there are homes that are completely built with timber. So we would encourage that there should be varieties of substitute for cement.
The need for government to regulate prices, open borders for import of building and construction materials, provide subsidies, engage local producers, stabilize exchange rate, involve professionals as well as monitor and enforce Executive Order Number 5. Top recommendations at the press conference.
The only option that government has is to open up the space. Is to open up the space, allow people to bring the same product into Nigeria. And I can tell you sitting here that will automatically crash down the price of the local manufacturers.
The group equally urged government to discourage cartels in the industry for a seamless economic development. In Abuja, Francis Udojo, NTA News.
One of the three legs on which society rests is the judiciary, a platform created for the resolution of disputes based on trust, arising from public disagreement with some recent judicial decisions in Nigeria. Key players in the sector are reappraising the proper role of the courts and the need for their judgments to be rock solid. Olabode Arewa reports that retired Justice Ibrahim Buba is leading this drive.
Over time, the judiciary has been an important aspect of Nigerian public life, dispensing justice to the high and the low. Despite the realization that judicial officers are human and therefore infallible, some query the judicial decisions that do not align with their preconceived mindsets, creating doubts about the judges who delivered such verdicts. This issue was brought to the fore at the Open Society Foundation's TAP initiative, a discourse on promoting judicial integrity. Drawing from his vast experience, retired federal judge Justice Ibrahim Buba ties alleged unsatisfactory court decisions to undue influence by the public.
The impact of judicial accountability and public trust in the legal system underscores justice, equity, rule of law, and justice delivery sectors.
The forum took note of the UN Office on Drugs and Crime 2022 working paper that recommended merit as the key determinant for appointing people into judicial offices.
Additionally, judges in Nigeria are often subjected to various pressures that can compromise their ability to perform their functions efficiently and effectively.
We are trying to improve one of the most critical sectors of our society by asking these very important and pertinent questions that range from appointment of judicial officers.
As a way forward, the legal practitioners present reminded themselves of their oath to be faithful ministers in the temple of justice as their way of helping the cause of justice to remain on the right path. Olabode Arewa, NTA News.
President Bola Tinubu congratulates a distinguished Nigerian, Alhaja Latifat Olufunke Gbajabiamila, as she turns 94 on March 2nd, 2024. President Tinubu celebrates Alhaja Gbajabiamila as an accomplished politician and philanthropist whose life has been one of sacrifice, devotion to God Almighty, and sacrifice to Nigerians, all strata of people and humanity. The President salutes Mama, who is the first elected female local government chairperson in Lagos State, extolling her as a leading light in the concourse of great women who have defined Nigeria's history. President Tinubu thanks Alhaja Gbajabiamila for her support and unceasing prayers, assuring the non-Nigerian that all her supplications for Nigeria will come to realization. And before we go, a quick check